Hi, I'm Aileen. I called my mom from the hospital, 2 broken ribs, a concussion, and she laughed. She said, "Your sister just had a baby." No visit, no flowers, just silence. Until they needed my blood. But what if this wasn't about a baby at all? What if the accident was just the beginning, and the real betrayal had been happening for years? Want to know what my family really wanted from me? The beep of the heart monitor was the first thing I noticed when I woke up. That, and the sterile scent of antiseptic mixed with something faintly metallic. My throat was dry, my leg felt like a slab of stone, and every breath made my ribs scream. It took a full minute to understand where I was. St. Joseph's Medical Center. The clock on the wall read 4:17 p.m. The soft light streaming through the blinds told me it was late afternoon, but what hit me harder than the pain was the silence. No flowers, no notes, no missed calls, just a single IV drip, the dull hum of machines, and me. I pressed the nurse button twice before someone finally showed up. She smiled, told me I'd been out for nearly a day and a half, surgery went well, and they'd tried contacting my emergency contacts. That word, emergency contacts, felt heavier than it should have. I had just one listed, my mom. She hadn't come. I waited. Another hour, then another. I stared at the phone on the table beside me like it might ring if I willed it hard enough. Eventually, I gave in. I picked it up and dialed her number. She answered on the third ring laughing, actually laughing. "Oh God, Aileen, you always call at the worst moments. Your sister just had her baby. Can't you go 5 minutes without drama?" I didn't say anything at first. My brain struggled to bridge the gap between what I expected and what I just heard. "I was in a car accident," I said slowly, like explaining it to a stranger. "Well, Lucy gave birth this morning. A little girl. We're here with her now, so if you're okay enough to call me, I guess you're not dying." The call ended just as casually as it began. "No, I love you." No concern. Just silence on the line after the last sentence, like I was someone who'd inconvenienced her. My fingers trembled as I placed the phone back on the table. That night, sleep didn't come easy. Every breath hurt, but not as much as the pit in my stomach. How many birthdays had they missed? How many holidays had I spent alone while Jolene, Lucy now, I guess, was always the star? The one they showed up for. I was the one with straight A's. The one who got the finance job out of college without help. I didn't get a balloon, not even a card. I was 34, and I felt like an orphan. The next morning, my phone started vibrating again. The screen flashed, Mom, then Dad, then back to Mom. Over 20 missed calls in less than an hour. I let them ring. I was too tired to care. By the afternoon, I answered, only because I was too worn out to ignore it. "Caroline, sweetheart." Mom's voice was suddenly soft, trembling, unrecognizable. "We need your help. It's urgent." My eyes narrowed. "Now it's urgent?" "It's about the baby," she said quickly. "Lucy's daughter. She has a rare blood condition. They need a transfusion urgently. You have the same type. Please, honey. You're the only match we know of." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Just yesterday, I was an overdramatic nuisance. Now, I was their only hope? "What hospital are you in?" I asked, voice sharp. "Florida Medical. We already arranged a ticket, first class. We'll cover it." "I'm in a hospital bed, Mom. I had surgery less than 48 hours ago. You didn't care when I was the one bleeding, remember?" Silence. Then a weak, "It's your niece, Aileen. She's family." Family. That word again, as if it still held the same weight. I remembered when I got accepted to Stanford for grad school. They didn't come to graduation. Lucy had a volleyball tournament. They never showed up for my big wins, only when they needed something. "I'll call you tomorrow," I said flatly. "You don't understand." "I do," I interrupted. "More than you think." I hung up. That night, as the Sacramento sky faded from pink to deep blue, I lay still, my thoughts racing. I knew my blood type wasn't rare. I also knew that what they really needed probably had nothing to do with blood. Something didn't add up. And for the first time, I wasn't going to jump just because they snapped their fingers. If I'd closed my eyes, maybe I could have pretended the hospital ceiling didn't look like a maze of fluorescent regret. But sleep wouldn't come. Not after that call. I lay there still and staring, the faint sounds of nurses at the station echoing down the hallway. My body ached, but the bigger pain wasn't physical. It was the realization that I was only family when they needed something. Not when I was alone on Christmas, not when I graduated top of my class, only when I had something to offer. Why now? Why this urgency? I didn't need a medical degree to know babies usually didn't need specific family blood donors. There were banks for that. So what the hell were they really after? By sunrise, my head throbbed from the questions I couldn't answer. Then came the knock on the door. A tall man in a tailored navy blazer stepped in, holding a slim leather portfolio. He looked around 40, clean-cut, confident. "Aileen Mercer?" he asked. I sat up a little. "Yes, and you are?" "Clayton Voss. I'm an attorney. A mutual contact from your MBA program, Natalie Raymond, said you might need someone who knows how inheritance law works." "Inheritance law?" He took the chair beside me and opened the folder. "I believe your family is asking you to sign a set of documents related to Mercer Realty. Before you do, there's something you need to see." He placed a printed copy of a will on my lap. My grandfather's name was typed at the top. "According to this, you were left 25% ownership in Mercer Realty. Your name, not Jolene's, not your parents', yours." I didn't say anything. My pulse pounded in my ears. "I'm sorry, but—" "What?" I finally whispered. "They never told you. That part's clear," he said gently. "But from what I can tell, your grandfather intended you to have a controlling vote in future board actions." A wave of vindication hit me so hard it made me dizzy. All those years of being treated like I didn't matter. And now I learned I was the one they needed. The one with the power. "I don't even work there," I muttered. Clayton gave a dry smile. "Doesn't change your rights." Before I could process anything further, another knock came at the door. Laurel Sloan stepped in, my old roommate and now a licensed therapist. She held a paper bag and a bouquet of wildflowers. "I brought muffins and moral support," she said. Clayton stood politely, nodding to her before excusing himself. Laurel sat by my bed, handing me a muffin. "You look like you got hit by a truck." "Technically, I did." She blinked. "Oh, right. Sorry." I laughed, an actual laugh, sharp and surprised. Then I told her everything. She listened without interruption, then leaned in and said, "This isn't paranoia. Your gut's been warning you. Trust it. And keep that lawyer close." I nodded. "I don't know how to feel." "That's okay. Just don't sign anything." Clayton returned shortly after with a small envelope. "These are copies of the documents they want you to sign," he said. "It's all phrased like you're releasing medical liability. But buried in the legalese, you'd be signing away your voting rights and shareholdings." My breath caught. "They need your signature, Aileen. That's why they're calling. That's what this is really about." I stared at the documents. Outside the window, the morning sun glinted off the rooftop of a nearby building. If I hadn't been hit by that truck, I would have signed it without a second thought. Clayton left with a nod, promising to check in the next day. I stayed in bed, holding the documents like they were radioactive. I flipped through each page. The signatures were real. The notary seal was clear. Everything about it screamed legitimacy, on the surface. I whispered into the stillness, "Why wouldn't they tell me?" 5 years. 5 years they kept this secret and smiled in my face like nothing was off. I could feel my jaw clench. An email alert buzzed on my phone. No sender, no subject line, just a message. "Your grandfather knew who you were." Attached was a grainy photo of a handwritten note. I recognized the loops and angled cursive. It was Ernesto's handwriting. Below it, a scan of what looked like a will. My name, clear as day, next to a 25% allocation. It wasn't typed. It wasn't legalese. It was real. Another line, typed below the images. "I've kept this safe. I knew they'd hide it. Linda Collins." My stomach dropped. Linda had been our housekeeper from when I was 8 until college. She was kind, firm, and always quietly watching. She was the one who slipped extra cookies into my lunch when Jolene accidentally left me out of hers. I remembered a night, I must have been 11, when I heard yelling from downstairs. My dad and his brother were arguing. "Dad wanted Aileen on the board!" Desmond's voice was furious. "Not Jolene! My father's voice snapped back, cruel and cold. She's too soft. She doesn't have the stomach for this business. I hadn't thought about that night in years, but now it rushed back like a flood. Linda must have known everything, and she waited. Until now. I reached over to the hospital bag Laurel had brought from my apartment. Inside, tucked into a hidden pocket of my old planner, was an outdated contact list from grad school. Desmond Mercer. I hadn't spoken to him since I was a teenager. He vanished after some family disagreement, which, in hindsight, probably meant Dad shoved him out too. I stared at his number. My finger hovered over the call button. Then I tapped. The line rang once, twice. Then a gravelly voice answered. Hello? It was older, rougher than I remembered, but unmistakable. Is this Aileen? I pulled the phone tighter to my ear. Uncle Desmond? There was a pause, like he didn't believe it. My God, you sound like your mother, but sharper. You okay? I've been better. Hospital bed, cracked ribs, and apparently a secret fortune I wasn't supposed to know about. Another silence, then a sigh. They did it to me too, kid. Different decade, same lies. Your grandfather trusted you just like he trusted me. They shut me out after the funeral. I rubbed my forehead. Why? Because control doesn't go to the obedient. It goes to the inconvenient ones, the ones who question everything. You were always the sharp one, Aileen. I saw it before anyone else did. I sat up slowly. Can we meet after I'm discharged? You say when. I've waited a long time to tell you the truth. We hung up. 10 minutes later, my phone lit up again. Dad. Against better judgment, I answered. Aileen, he said, too calm. We're worried. Jolene's still waiting in Florida. The car's already at the airport. I'm not coming. A beat. Don't be childish. I know about the will. Silence. I know what Grandpa left me, and I know you've been trying to erase it. His voice changed, harder, sharper. This isn't about the past. This is about family unity, alignment. Don't talk to me about family. You left me bleeding in a hospital and now you want my signature? Click. A new message popped in from Clayton. Attached was the full contract, pages and pages disguised as a generic medical release. But buried in the fine print, in tangled legalese, was the truth. If I signed it, I'd hand over every right to Mercer Realty. It was a trap. I called back. Dad, I said coldly, try and send me another lie like that again, and I swear I'll send the truth, every last page, to a lawyer and the press if I have to. He didn't reply. The line went dead. For the first time in years, I felt something stronger than fear. Power. Clayton showed up around 9, holding a travel mug and a folder so thick it looked like it could bruise someone. I went through the entire contract, he said, no small talk. Every page. You were right. This was never about the baby. I nodded, jaw tight. They were hoping I'd be too hurt to notice. They almost succeeded. I told him about the call from my father, how he pivoted from faux concern to veiled threats in under 2 minutes. Clayton listened closely, eyes narrowing. They're pushing because they're desperate, and that makes them sloppy. He pulled a printout from the folder and slid it to me. Desmond called. He got internal records. Mercer Realty is bleeding out. Bad investments, fake write-offs, borderline fraud. My stomach nodded. So this isn't just personal, it's survival. They're trying to save the company by selling your stake behind your back. Your shares are the only ones not tied up in debt. I leaned back against the pillow. Of course. Why earn trust when they can just steal it? Desmond joined our call via video a few hours later. His face looked worn, but his eyes were sharp. You were their failsafe, Aileen, and now you're the firewall. He sent over old board memos, damning ones. I skimmed them, heat rising in my chest. They made me believe I was invisible. All this time, I was the threat. Clayton adjusted his glasses. So we moved first. We drafted a legal letter freezing my voting rights temporarily, on my terms. Demand for full transparency, no further contracts. A warning at the end. Any further attempts to solicit a signature without counsel present will result in legal escalation. It was the first thing I signed all week. That evening, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was Jolene, a voice memo. You think you're saving something, Aileen? You're not. You're ruining everything. I didn't reply. I didn't delete it either. I wasn't ruining everything. I was uncovering it, layer by filthy layer. The next morning, A man in a blazer showed up at my hospital room with a silver envelope and a rehearsed smile. Delivery for Miss Aileen Mercer, from Mercer Holdings. He didn't wait for a signature. Inside was a formal letter laced with syrupy corporate jargon and an undertone so bitter it could rot teeth. It accused me of willfully destabilizing family operations and inflicting emotional strain on my mother, who, just 5 days ago, laughed when I called from a trauma bed. Tucked in the corner of the page, in neat script, was a handwritten note. "Don't burn bridges you might need. Jolene." I stared at it for a long time before setting it down. Clayton arrived an hour later. I handed him the letter without a word. He read it, then exhaled through his nose. "So now they're playing nice mean." His response wasn't just legal, it was surgical. A cease and desist addressed directly to Mercer Realty's board, citing manipulation, harassment, and intent to defraud. Attached were receipts, emails, phone records, even a breakdown of the disguised contract. "We're not just freezing your vote," he said. "We're holding a mirror up to every lie they've built." Right after lunch, Desmond called. "Brace yourself. Jolene's called an emergency board session for tomorrow. They want to freeze your shares." I laughed, sharp and dry. Let them try. "They're coming at this from all sides, Aileen. Your father's furious. Jolene's saying you've jeopardized your niece's treatment. They're calling you unstable." Of course they are. When truth doesn't work, they invent a new story. That night, I listened to Jolene's voice note again. At 32 seconds, the fake concern curdled into threat. "You've always been jealous. Just remember, little sister, when you tear things down, don't be surprised when they fall on you." I forwarded the clip to Clayton with a note. "If they come for me, I'm coming for all of them." And I knew exactly where to start. Marcus's face appeared on my laptop screen just after noon. He looked nervous, but determined. "I found something," he said without preamble. "Metadata logs from the contract files. Your father and Jolene modified them. They renamed the file to mimic a hospital document, changed timestamps, even spoofed an internal approval chain." I clenched the armrest. "Are you sure?" "They left fingerprints, sloppy ones, a rush job." I closed my eyes for a moment. "That's felony fraud, Marcus." He nodded slowly. "I know." By late afternoon, Desmond called. His voice was tight. "They held a virtual board session. Without you. I recorded part of it." He sent over the file. I clicked play. "She's too reactive," Jolene sneered. "No real edge, always so eager to please." Then my father. "She's been a liability since day one. She's only dangerous now because she knows too much." And in the background, clear as day, my mother. "She won't push back. She never has." My chest didn't burn this time. It froze. I opened my LinkedIn account, paused, then typed, "There's always more to the story, especially when you're the one they tried to erase." I hit post. Within minutes, messages started rolling in, former employees, old colleagues. "About time." "We're watching." "We've got your back." Clayton pinged me. That got their attention. 10 minutes later, his assistant slid an envelope under my hospital door. It was a cease and desist. "Defamatory behavior will result in immediate legal consequences," it read. Thick, glossy, expensive paper. I stared at it, then tore it in half and stuffed it into the biohazard bin beside my bed. They wanted war? They were about to see exactly what I'd inherited. The Mercer boardroom looked exactly as I remembered it. Cold, cavernous, intimidating. But this time I didn't walk in as the outsider. I came in on crutches, yes, but I stood taller than ever. Clayton walked beside me, Desmond just behind. Jolene glanced up from her seat, startled to see me there in person. Dad stiffened. His hands were clasped in front of him, like a man bracing for a storm. Across the long table sat Diane Richter, an independent board member Grandpa once called the last honest person on payroll. She nodded once, then gestured for us to sit. "Let's proceed," she said. Before anyone else could speak, a screen blinked to life at the end of the table. "Sorry to interrupt," came a man's voice, Lyle Harland, former investor. "Thought the board should hear why I divested last year." Jolene froze. "I have documentation showing Jolene Mercer manipulated quarterly results tied to the Sunview project in Phoenix. Internal forecasts were inflated. She doctored figures. Clayton has the originals." Clayton slid a folder across the table. Time-stamped emails, confirmed with server logs. Jolene's face went white. Dad snapped, "This isn't the time or place." "It's exactly the time," Diane said flatly. I stood slowly and passed out printed copies of my proposal. Effective immediately. I'm reinstating my full voting rights. Jolene will step down. Mercer Realty will issue a formal statement acknowledging falsified royalty filings, and Franklin will return 5% of grandfather's shares to Desmond, shares he was forced to forfeit under duress. Diane reviewed it all in silence, then said, "This is sound." Dad slammed his fist on the table. "She'll destroy this company." "Or rebuild it with actual integrity," Diane replied. A vote was set for the next morning at 9 a.m. As I stood to leave, I looked at my father and said, "Sleep well, Dad." The boardroom was colder than I remembered it. Maybe it was just me. At 9 a.m. sharp, Diane called the vote. Each member's voice echoed through the speaker. Yes, yes, yes. One abstained. That was enough. My proposal passed. Jolene's face didn't flinch, but her hand gripped the table like she was bracing for impact. She stood and left without a word. Franklin followed, slower, shoulders hunched. He didn't argue, didn't look back. I stood taller than I had in weeks, even with crutches under each arm. By noon, the press release went live. Mercer Realty admitted to oversight in filings and confirmed my reinstatement. Clayton watched it all unfold with a calm satisfaction. But even as my name appeared in the headlines, I didn't feel victorious, just intact. Desmond walked beside me as we exited the building. "You didn't just win, kid," he said. "You survived them." I gave a half smile. I'm still bleeding in places no one sees. That night, I returned to my apartment for the first time since the accident. It smelled like lavender and silence. I hadn't even taken off my coat when my phone buzzed. A voice message from Mom. I hesitated, then pressed play. "I hope you're proud of what you've done," she said, her voice clipped, emotionless. "You've torn this family apart." No apology, no remorse, just a final jab. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my old journal, flipping past pages written in hope, in disappointment, in pain. I wrote one line under today's date. I didn't tear us apart. I just stopped pretending we were ever whole. I placed Grandpa's framed photo back on the shelf, facing the window. Then I turned on my laptop. A message from a new investor blinked at the top of my inbox. I began typing. I used to think being quiet was safer, that if I just kept my head down and worked harder, someday someone would notice. That family, no matter how broken, still meant something solid. But I've learned that blood doesn't make you safe, and silence doesn't make you strong. Standing up for myself cost me a lot. The illusion of loyalty, the fantasy of a loving family. But what I gained was real. Truth, clarity, and for the first time, a future I chose, not one handed to me in pieces. So if you're watching this and you've ever felt erased, used, or underestimated, just know, your voice matters. Your worth isn't up for negotiation, not even with people who share your DNA. You don't owe anyone your peace just to keep them comfortable. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever had to set boundaries with family to protect your peace? Do you think forgiveness always requires reconciliation? Let's talk about it in the comments. If this story moved you, if it hit somewhere deep, drop a 1 in the comments or just tell me what city or state you're watching from. I'd love to know. And if you're new here or you want more stories that speak truth, power, and healing, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It helps this channel keep telling real stories for real people. See you in the next one.